Meeting.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start this evening with a few announcements. Santa is coming to the Heritage and Cultural Center on Friday, December 20th from 4:30 to 8:30 p.m. Also Saturday, December 21st from 1 to 4 p.m. and Sunday, December 22nd from 1 to 4 p.m. Photos with Santa are free and you're welcome to check out the holiday decorations and exhibits. The Public Works Department is seeking applicants for a full-time public works laborer. Please visit the town website for more details. Town Hall will be closed on the following dates: Tuesday, December 24th, Wednesday, December 25th, and Wednesday, January 1st in observance of the holidays. We'd also like to announce the second annual Holiday Lights Contest. Submittals will be due Wednesday, December 18th. The town staff, administration, and council wishes everyone a safe and happy holiday season. Are there any other announcements from anyone else on council? Pending none, at this time, we will have public comment on agenda items only. Please come forward, state your name and address for any public comment on agenda items. Seeing none, we'll continue into the bulk of our meeting here. The previous meeting minutes for December 9th were submitted to each member of council. Everyone should have had time to review them. Can we have a Mr. Wall makes a motion to approve? Is there a second? Mr. Casey, any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move into reports of committees. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Casey for Administration and Finance Committee.
Okay, staff reports. Everybody should have had an opportunity to review the checklist number 11. Any questions? If not, then I would like to make a motion to approve checklist number 11 dated November 1, 2024 to November 30th, 2024, totaling $1,274,552.86 is submitted to each member of council and posted on the bulletin board and town website.
Second.
Thank
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
you.
Y'all received your financial dashboard and revenue and expenditure report for the month of November in your packet. I have no changes at this time. We are at 90% of budget for revenues and at 82% roughly in expenditures. Everything is progressing. I believe we will meet budget or exceed it in revenues and be under in expenditures. Do you have any questions on tonight's report? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Greathouse. Communications report. John?
I have nothing to add to John's report.
Okay, thank you. Junior council members report.
Hi, good evening. So I just have a few updates for the month of December. So first of all, the Toys for Tiger is the district-wide fundraiser with the athletics department and the Unified Boosters Organization. And the campaign aims to provide families with toys and clothes and foods for the holiday season. And our school is close to reaching their fundraising goal of $20,000 for this season. So that's really exciting. And then last week, we held the District 2 DECA competition. And so DECA is an international business and career development competition organization. And we always hold the District 2 competition at the Barrel Center every year. And this year, we had a record attendance of over 300 people from 6 other schools. And over 100 North Allegheny students qualified for the state competition, which will be held in Hershey in Pennsylvania, and Hershey in February. And another exciting thing is that we had a North Allegheny student become a state officer. And we're also hoping to run another another student for a state officer position in Hershey. So North Allegheny has state representation in this very big organization, which we're very excited about. And then lastly is for the arts, the North Allegheny Music Department. We have prepared a lot of winter concerts for this month, and notably the Nash Orchestra had great success with their winter concert last week with over 100 attendees, and the middle and elementary schools will have their concerts soon as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Yuki. Next, liaison reports.
Yep.
MIDA, Mr. Arlo.
Yes, there was no meeting. We did have 2 interviews that I think will come up later tonight.
Great, thank you. Okay, North Hills Council of Governments,
There-
President Singer.
There was no meeting in December. There was one in November. As always, the topic of discussion is road salt.
We can have enough.
We're doing well.
Okay, great, thank you. Any public comment on administration and finance committee items? Okay, then I'll turn it over to Mr. Arlo.
Report on planning and zoning committee, staff reports. RJ, fill us in.
Good evening. We had some beefier applications other than compared to the last couple months at our planning commission this month. So there's a lot of text on my report that goes into a lot of detail, and I am happy to answer any questions about those, but I'll try to just give a briefer overview prior to any questions. So we had the first application on here is Walnut Court Phase 2. Phase 1 was about 40 townhome units, maybe a little less, off of Walnut Court, which is right by the on-ramp onto 19, bit down the road there. The Phase 2 property was a property at the very end that at the time was a single family home when the first phase was originally developed, which is maybe like 7 years ago. I want to say that approval went through. At that time, the owner of the home did not want to sell. Since then, it's my understanding that either the family sold or that owner passed away or something happened to, make the property available. And so the developer acquired it. It was always his intention that he would have liked to just take the townhomes all the way down that road. But that was impossible in Phase 1. So anyway, he's coming back for Phase 2, but there are some challenges on the remaining parcel, which can fit 1 townhome building. Phase 2 is a whole 6 units right now. So it's a bit smaller than the first one. But just due to, things like where they placed the water line or the fact that they already paved the cul-de-sac because they didn't know they were going to be able to eventually acquire this property. There are just some infrastructure challenges with fitting it in the same way that the other buildings were. So they have a couple modification requests on the table. One is for a slope, a pretty common fill slope mod that we see as long as you have a geotech report that supports it, not a big deal. A buffering modification request that also potentially is not a big deal because there's an enormous wooded lot on the other side that MTSA owns. But the one that has been giving the planning commission some heartburn perhaps is to have a shared access drive that spurs off of the cul-de-sac and runs in front of these townhomes. It would be a 21 foot, I think actually, wide cartway paved area, which would allow for 2-way traffic, really not that much smaller than what an actual paved road would be. However, it cannot achieve a full 50-foot right of way just due to the site constraints. And so they are requesting to have this spur off of the cul-de-sac be allowed to have lots subdivided onto it, which otherwise you need at least 20 feet of frontage onto, whether it's a public or a private road, like a road that meets town specs, basically. So there's some debate, the planning commission is still considering exactly how they feel about that. They've asked the developer for some additional information. We'll see how that goes. We're waiting on revisions. That's about as simple as I can make it without getting into really the weeds of the code, but I'm always happy to talk about the weeds of the code if somebody has a question.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the weeds. For a minute.
Yes.
Let's talk about first responders and being able to put an ambulance in there in that 20-foot right of way
Mhm,
or a fire apparatus.
mhm.
How does that work?
So they've proposed a hammerhead at the end.
And that's against our zoning, correct?
It's not allowed by default. It is on the Saldo side, part 11, which is where these design modifications that we can decide a little more discretionally versus a variance that has to go to the zoning hearing board and prove hardship. So this is sort of a question of, do we feel that what they're proposing is equal to what the design of the code as written would require, which is kind of what's being teased out right now. I will say we have the fire marshal always gets the opportunity to take a look at land development plans. in the review process. He did
What
not
about the other
provide,
first responders?
that's not the typical procedure. It goes to the fire marshal to point out things like truck turning radius. We also require turning templates for any large vehicles like a garbage truck or a fire truck. Whenever somebody proposes some sort of turnaround like this, a hammerhead is not by default allowed in our code. A cul-de-sac is the assumption for a dead-end street, but again, a modification request, which they've made optionally, can be approved if we feel that it is an acceptable means of access, is the way that
And
it's
my
worded.
question to you is, if they request a hammerhead with a 20-foot path, right?
So the road going down to the hammerhead would be 21 feet wide, which is a couple feet shy of what a normal street would be.
When you
Paved
say
street.
Couple, is it 24 or is it 30?
Oh, no, it's not 30. I believe that 24 is the code requirement. I would have to double check, but I'm pretty positive that 24 feet is the paved cartway requirement. Usually you have a 50-foot wide right of way, a couple feet for sidewalks, and then about 15 feet on
I
other
know
side.
this is still with the planning commission, but I have concerns.
Well, it will come to you. You know, they just get to make a recommendation. Ultimately, council votes. So yeah, these are the types of questions that are being asked. I mean, in terms of an actual drive aisle, it's adequate for two cars to pass each other. Is it adequate for two cars to pass each other if somebody is parked on the street? Not necessarily. So that's an open
It doesn't
question.
prevent parking on the street either.
And well, but that could be a proposed condition of approval if we were to grant a modification. I mean, that would be my suggestion if council was contemplating granting this modification anyway, is that they have to post it no parking.
I saw this all the way back when I was liaison. to planning
Yeah,
commission.
yeah, they took about a year to do revisions,
And
so.
the planning commission is being very thorough in this because they're also looking at other areas in the town where this has been similar and we've granted that. The last hammerhead over in Great Brook, I call it, I can't remember. But it was a similar situation, an end of lot, undeveloped area that, you know, you don't want to landlock that area. So the hammerhead was a good use there. You know, I think that's, I'd let it get through planning commission because they've been, the last time I sat on that. a
Yeah,
year ago,
they were
it
very
was
tough on
very
it.
thorough.
We were getting really into the code citations there.
Because you understand my concern.
Oh, definitely. And I think, but let them do their work. Because they have those same concerns. In that meeting a year ago, those same concerns came up then. So
Yeah,
that's why I think, you know, it's, as you said, it's still coming down.
You know, that's
We-
the first problem that we're gonna have is if we have an incident in those units, we can't get an ambulance in there, we can't get a fire truck in there, we can't get a police vehicle.
Mhm.
You got a huge problem. And
Yeah,
the problem doesn't roll with the developer. Because if we approve it, it comes back to us.
so again, this is the cartway. The paved area is very similar to the driving path of a typical back and forth two-way street. So, again, further discussion certainly needs to be had as to whether if this is even approved, because it's discretionary, you know, it could be, it could not be. I think that we would certainly want to talk about if it was going to be approved, putting a condition of no parking on. Two vehicles should not have a problem passing each other as long as nobody is parked in that cartway. Anytime somebody asks for a hammerhead, we always require truck turning templates, which we're getting for this one as well, but it appears to be large enough. One of the other things that the planning commission is talking about is what is causing this issue where they need this potential modification is that the townhomes are intended to be subdivided and sold fee simple. You know, individual units get sold directly to people. And so in order to do that, you have to create a lot for each townhome. And so we have an allowance in our mortgage subdivision type that if your whole parcel meets the zoning requirements, each little individual one does not have to meet the zoning requirements of the whole district, because that's kind of impossible. You wouldn't have any setback. However, that does not exempt you from part 11, the design requirements of streets, lots, you know, infrastructure layouts, the saldo. And so while if they were doing condos of this building and would not have to further subdivide it, the lot itself would have frontage on the cul-de-sac and meet that requirement. Selling them fee simple triggers the requirement that you need to have frontage on a road. So in theory, this building could be approved if it wasn't going to be subdivided. But what's catching this issue is
it
the
is.
subdivision of the units. So that's something that one of the commissioners was talking about, if this could theoretically happen, but the difference is ownership, do we really want to get hung up on this?
But the
I think
same
that's still very much an
developer-
open question,
The
though.
same developer, when presented with issues with building size, et cetera, changed plans completely and made an apartment building.
Wow, that was really long ago. We're
Mhm.
going back to like my very
So,
first
I mean,
zoning
has
meeting.
that Been brought on to the table that you may
Um,
do something like that.
I mean,
Would
I
that ever be allowed in that place to do a garden style apartment if we say no to this?
So, I mean, I can't speak for how everyone would theoretically vote if he brought a zoning request. However, I would say the RM district and none of our pure residential districts allow garden apartments. They are all considered mixed use construction in the M prefix districts. Because they are functionally commercial construction. So if we were to be presented with a rezoning request to change just that one parcel to like MU or MN, I would recommend against it as spot zoning. RM or RL, which is the single and two family district, are probably planning wise the only appropriate districts for that parcel. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's single family homes, duplexes, less than 6 units in a townhome building. Those are all
Mhm.
options. A garden apartment in this case would not be. But that's a good pool. I hadn't thought about that for a while. So anyway, I don't necessarily personally have an opinion on this one. I've kind of just allowed the planning commission to have their own discussion about it, and they certainly are in great detail. So we will await revisions, potentially coming back to the January meeting, TBD. Those are due within a couple days if we're going to have them on the agenda.
I didn't mean to get you off the track. Is there anything else you got? coming?
Yes, there's one more development. That's okay. This is what this is for questions. So we also have the Kerry Lane Apartments project. This is on it's one of sort of 2 remaining pads in McCandless Crossing West. The other one is that very small one off of St. Simon Way that goes into Lowe's, which probably just looks like a grassy lawn area, but technically is parcel. This one is right beside Remington Senior Living. So if you take Duncan all the way around, and you don't quite go all the way down to the LA Fitness, but you turn off onto that spur, that's Kerry
We
Lane.
heard that proposal at the last meeting, correct?
This just came to the
That's
planning
zoning.
commission
We
for the
heard it at
first time.
zoning.
It's zoning, okay,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh, I see. Yes, you're thinking of the zoning hearing board. Yes, there were a couple variances for that one, which were approved. So this is one of the last lots left in McCandless Crossings master plan development. It got a few variances at the zoning hearing board because that whole development was laid out under a very different zoning code that didn't have maximum front setbacks. It just had minimums. Then you could keep going back as far as you wanted. Not the case anymore. We try to pull buildings up to the street. However, in this case, Kerry Lane, which is essentially a road, but it's a private access easement for Remington, technically through the property. They're pulling the building up, so it would be as if it met the setback for Kerry Lane, just not McKnight Road, which it would not front on
As
anyway.
I understand it from attending that meeting, is that it is to almost mirror what is existing there.
Yes, which was a good reason, one of a handful of reasons that those variants were approved, but it matches the existing character of the neighborhood. And they also have the regional stormwater facility in the rear of the property on the Duncan side, that serves all of McCandless Crossing West. So they definitely, I know you can't, I mean, we just don't want anybody building, anywhere near there, but it's also a pretty steep drop off. So we don't want fill placed in that. So they got build to area variances both in the front and the back, since they have frontage on Duncan as well. That is the stormwater pit essentially. But so this project is for 40 units in an apartment building. As we just mentioned, apartments are permitted use in MU. The building design that they're proposing meets our architectural standards. Pretty exciting. First building that we've had coming in the mixed use districts that actually had to design to our form standards. So we're going to have a nice, well lit, inviting facade with a couple stories on top. of units, and some amenities on the bottom level, and then some open space and, low intensity rec amenities in the back for the residents. Proposing to essentially mirror the parking lot in Remington as well as the buffer yard. This one just requires some more revisions, and we need to formalize the buffer yard modification request. They're looking to drop down to 10 from 15, but Remington also has a 10-foot buffer, so it would functionally be a 20-foot one. Just needed to see some revisions, clear out a few more comments, and get that review letter shrank a little bit, but there's nothing really wacky about this one.
This isn't necessarily a senior facility. is
It's
it?
not, no, this would be regular apartments. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
where my only concern is the one parking spot per unit
Yeah.
with,
Yes.
a typical two-wage earner family unit is gonna have two vehicles in the families.
Yeah. So
Visitors.
what I will
things of that
say,
nature.
I will say a couple things about this, and this has been a drum we've been beating since we did the zoning code rewrite. One parking space minimum per unit is national standard for apartments, national planning standard recommendations for zoning. So we did incorporate that into our code. We found that there were situations where people had studio apartments, things like that, where they had to overpark the building. Number two is that ultimately providing above and beyond the minimum parking requirements is a consumer choice issue. If you need 2 parking spots, you are not going to move into that apartment. So they've designed to the minimum. It is up to them whether they would like to provide additional parking spots, but due to the proximity to public transit, there may also be people that don't have a car. So the 1 space per unit minimum
That might be
accounts for
true in the
that.
city. But out here in the suburbs, I don't necessarily think that's true.
I find it unlikely.
And along with Ms. Clunen's comments, you have to have 2 wage earners, and I guarantee you that the rent there is not going to be cheap.
I think what I would say to that is, once upon a time, I had an apartment without a roommate, not in McCandless. Definitely not in McCandless, but again,
I had one
the
too,
minimum,
called college. Somebody else paid for it.
some of us paid for apartments by ourselves at some point in life. Anyways, our code requirement is 1 per unit. I do not think it would be likely for a developer to build an apartment complex that they could not fill because they did not provide enough parking for their target consumer. But that said, the developer has noted that there is additional space in the rear that they could expand the parking if there was demand, and found the need, but they are trying to maximize the open space and reduce impervious surface at this time. So, any other questions about that one? Cool. All right. That's everything that the planning commission handled this month. What they handled this year, I think, is also in your packets, and the annual report that you get at the end of every year just summarizes all of the things that pass through and the recommendation, yea or nay, ordinances, conditional uses, rezonings, the whole shebang. And on the horizon next month, I am really excited to tell you, Kelly, I haven't even told you this yet. The grading ordinance rewrite draft is done. So 2 years of that on the engineer's report. But I'm glad that we waited until we got the zoning code done, because there's a better synergy, I think, between what we're looking at. Just really needed a tune-up. It was quite old. So we will talk about that more next month. But in the meantime, keep an eye out. You're going to have more code to read.
What specifically that grading?
The grading ordinance, yes. Which is outside of our saldo, but related and important.
Any relation to the stormwater?
No, we have separate.
Thank you.
Grading and stormwater are the 2 things that are separate design-wise from the saldo otherwise.
Stormwater was done before the water process.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
All right, we good? Great, thanks.
Thanks. Liaison reports, planning commission, that's me. RJ did a great job putting that together. All that's in your packet. Zoning hearing board, Trish.
There was no meeting this month, but we did interview 2 applicants, which we'll be discussing later.
Any public comments on planning zoning committee items? Barring none.
Oh, there's one.
Oh,
Come on up, state your name and address.
That you were talking about, just Rita Martin, 10585 Grubbs Road. And is there any space for a park and playground for kids there of any kind? Do they allow for stuff like that? I mean, it just seems to me that there are a lot of kids that go move into those
There's
apartments.
actually a spot
Is-
as you're coming in before you make that turn on the opposite side of the road.
I don't know.
You know,
The
Talked about
daycare, the daycare?
across
Across
the
the
street.
street from the daycare. He's got another
No, no,
one.
I'm talking about where those apartments are.
Where the
off of
actual apartments
Ingomar,
will be.
off of Those townhouses. I mean, because when you look at other developments,
Oh, you mean Ingomar, or sorry.
yeah,
the
Ingomar, I'm
Walnut
sorry,
Court
Ingomar,
one?
yes,
The Walnut
yes,
Court
the
one.
townhouse.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, because other, developments in Cranberry and other places, they do have places for kids to play, and I don't see, and that's not existing there. I just wondered if we have zoning that requires that kind of
They
thing.
strengthened that. Didn't we?
May I?
Go for
I'm
it.
sorry, I didn't want
Thank
to. So, no, I'm actually quite thrilled to talk about our pros requirements. Yeah, maybe let me just come up here so I'm not leaning.
So pros is a new thing that we invented for our saldo when we redid it. I mean, I'm sure somebody else has it in the world, but we drafted it. It stands for public recreation and open space. So I don't have like the most thrilling answer for this specific question, which is the developer was allowed to pay a fee in lieu for phase one, and this is only adding 6 more units. So of course, ultimately it's up to final approval, but they do intend to request to pay the fee in lieu for these remaining 6 units. And there was not space left for, active engagement amenities. Although the apartment complex that we were talking about, this developer having done, he did put in like a trail and a bocce court and things like that, because you can't really get out of that property that well to do other things. But the pros requirements, it's kind of similar to what we had in the old code, in that we did have certain open space benchmarks that you had to hit per unit. But it was very limited in scope. It was actually written to say that you had to build a playground or like a park or something that you would give over to the town. That was done, I think, in the early 90s. In later years, the town didn't really want a bunch of parks that it had no control over operationally, whether they were going to be taking them or not. That was a bit arduous, I think. So they had built in the fee in lieu option, which was used by very many developers. And we were not taking dedication of those facilities as built. Pros gives you a bunch of different options. You can do open space and passive recreation. You can do active recreation, and you can fulfill the requirements. Like you need a little bit less space to do active recreation, for example. You can donate land to a conservancy. A nonprofit can hold it. You can offer it to the town. And if you don't like any of those things, then you can still, by approval of council, pay a fee in lieu that we have bumped up a bit to reflect our recreation costs a little better in recent years. But yeah, I would invite you, if you want to go on eCode and check it out, just type in PROS. And that should bring it up on the search, and you can see all of the wonderful things we've now enabled. So.
Other public comment, name and address.
Paul Heckman, 10529 Abbey Lane. In support of pros, it's not just about the development that you're putting in. We have 140 units, townhouses next to our patio homes, where we're the playground more often than not for the kids that live over there. Not that we're grumpy, but sometimes it gets to be not the environment that most people feel is appropriate for many of the activities that go on. So it's not, I think you have to look at this not just for that little property. And remember that when you're allowing that by, you're going to have the kids up off of Pine Creek over in Graybrook playing in the streets over there or in the woods over there in your backyard, because that's what they do here, because they have no place to do it where they live. And I think that's an important thing to remember, especially when you're building places that are likely to have kids and maybe not have as many children. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Marcia, is here.
It's too close to Christmas Day.
Any other public comments on planning and zoning items? All right, then we'll turn it over to Mr. Giorgetti. Or do you want us to run it from here, Nick?
If you guys would, since, Zoom can get annoying.
Not a problem. Staff reports, Parks and Rec Coordinator report. Abby.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm Abby Lukostic, Parks and Rec Coordinator, and thank you to you all and to Mr. Schwen for giving me a few moments to present to you the Parks and Rec Annual Report for 2024. So Tricia has it pulled up here. Okay, so formally established in 2023, the Parks and Rec Department is responsible for overseeing operations pertaining to the parks, open space, recreation, facilities, and structures to develop and administer programs, services, and community events for town residents. Next. Oh, thank you. Other responsibilities include managing the online registration system, Civic Rec. I act as a liaison between the town and youth sports organizations. I plan and implement Community Day, with help from others, of course, Winterfest and other special events, seek sponsorships for said events, respond to and address public inquiries and requests related to the parks, act as the staff liaison to the AAC ad hoc committee, and recruit and coordinate volunteers to assist in events and parks projects. As you all know, the town of McCandless has 5 beautiful parks: Devlin, Potter, Wall, Vestal, and Vincentian. And the parks and adjacent trails are maintained by the town's Public Works Department and are responsible for the maintenance, landscaping, and upkeep of the facilities. In 2024, the DPW completed numerous projects in the park system this year. All of those are listed and more there on the slide, including installing new playground equipment at Devlin's Lorraine Rogers Soccer Fields and Wall Park, painting the pavilions at Devlin and Wall Park, and backfilling the sidewalk along Grubbs Road, and many more projects listed on the slide. And these are some details about each park. So first we have Devlin. Also part of Devlin is Lorraine Rogers Soccer Fields with the fitness court up top. Wall Park and Brant Trail. Vestal Park and Northrop Trail. Vincentian. And Potter Park. Which leads us to our recreation programs for 2024. So participant and resident feedback informed the programming in the second half of 2024. Residents and members of our community helped plan, implement, and suggest programming. And after each yoga, pickleball, and tennis clinic, a survey was sent out to each participant to gauge satisfaction and services provided. So what were those programs? First, we had pickleball. With our newly resurfaced tennis courts and newly created pickleball courts in 2022, Devlin Park has been thriving. Players often comment how our courts are the best outdoor courts around and love playing on them. Dana Kantz is our town pickleball instructor, and she taught intro-level clinics and held a round robin this fall to great success. And Dana and I will build upon those successes with a series of programs in the spring of 2025 when the courts reopen. So on this slide, these are quotes from survey participants. With the popularity of pickleball, tennis sadly can be overshadowed. McCandless resident Jim Block reached out in August about hosting a Learn to Play Tennis clinic held in conjunction with the United States Tennis Association. And in September, we held a 2-hour clinic with 10 participants and plan to offer more guided tennis instruction again in 2025. Yoga in Devlin Park was brought back in August of this year after requests from residents. Again, taught by McCandless resident Carolyn Spear and assisted by Carissa Ragosta. Classes were held in August and September. Participation waned in October due to the cold weather on Saturday mornings outside. And we intend to hold the yoga classes outside again in the spring. There aren't many places around that do outdoor yoga, so. Nature hike on Vestal Trail. McCandless resident, former EAC member Don Miller led a nature hike along Northrop Trail. When the weather breaks in the spring, we hope to do this again on the Northrop Trail and additionally on Brant Trail and through Potter Park. Community events are a great way to create a sense of belonging, show pride in our community, and engage the public in a positive way. This year, the town hosted an Easter egg hunt with over 300 children in attendance, Community Day, and Winterfest. Community Day, everyone's favorite day of the year in McCandless. And this year's event was a great success with an estimated 1,000 people in attendance. And new this year, we had attractions on the soccer fields and use of the PRT park and ride for additional auxiliary parking. And on the next slide, we have some fun photos. Winterfest. This year had a fantastic turnout. The weather helped that a lot. It was cold, but it wasn't raining or snowing. This year, the entire back parking lot was made a part of the event. A photo booth provided a photo strip with Winterfest 2024 written on the bottom. And McCandless resident John's Funky Inflatables rented us some great inflatables to fill the space in the DPW garage. And on the next slide, we have some more fun event photos. I also created social media posts about the events, the Parks and Rec programs of the town. They also advertised and highlighted the Parks and Rec department. We had numerous articles posted in the North Journal showing our activities and events. And this year, we are kicking off the Parks Comprehensive Plan. It has begun, and the first steering committee meeting will occur sometime in January 2025. This process will assess the town's parks and suggest ways to better meet the needs of residents and improve quality of life for residents and visitors to McCandless. My personal comprehensive plan for 2025, I have a lot of big ideas. Now with both major community events under my belt, I have a list of things I would change and want to add to make Community Day and Winterfest better. I also have a list a mile long of other small programs to facilitate, including bringing back Treasures in the Trunk, cookie decorating classes, guided hikes, and more. And we'll also be installing a sidewalk alongside the tennis courts with a gate opening at the pickleball courts. After feedback from both tennis and pickleball players, plans were made for this adjustment, making the park more functional for users. Now, on the next slide are some more ideas that I had for potential programming. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you the accomplishments made this year. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. We appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, one question would be, are you, obviously this is available to our residents if they want to go into the town documents. but, I would love to see this as a social media share.
Sure.
As well.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of people say, what's going on in the town? We don't know what's going on. And just to say, hey, look at what we have done just this year alone.
Yeah.
Would really be great for us.
And we'll certainly add this to the website under the Parks and Rec tab as well.
Throw it out there as, you know, this is what we've accomplished so far.
Sure.
Because you've done a lot of hard work and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I want to compliment you on the report and all the work you've done this year. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
All right. This time liaison reports, Finance Development and Promotional Committee. Mr. Hart.
There is a report from the HCC Finance Committee in your packet. And also a reminder that Santa will be at HCC this coming week, in case you haven't seen Santa yet, on the 20th, 21st, and 22nd.
Even if you have.
Even if you have.
He's everywhere.
Thank you, Mr. Hart.
Yeah, that's
Hey,
right.
He's a nice
Okay,
guy.
Activities Advisory Ad Hoc Committee. Ms. Cloonan.
It has not met because of the busyness around Winterfest, but I imagine we'll be getting together at the beginning of the new year.
Great, thank you. At this time, are there any public comments on Recreation Committee items?
Hi, good evening. Marcia Caliendo, 10529 Abbey. Excellent on the recreation. Thank you very much for all of that. And is there any discussion or thought about resurrecting the activities committee to become a regular committee again? I think with everything that Abby is doing, is there anything that would be helpful if there was a more formal committee again, as opposed to an ad hoc? So
I would just speak to this of, I think anyone who's interested in helping can reach out to our town council liaison.
Okay.
Just for a little background, as we're about to go through appointments later on here, you'll see. It's a long process to get people involved.
I know.
And the ability, and it was a council-wide
Right.
recommendation to move to ad hoc. I think it's functioning great. I think we have a great liaison who really brings value to it. I think it works well for where it is.
Okay.
I don't want to appoint people just to appoint them, just to
agree.
fill a position. I think we would always keep it open if we feel that it needs to move to that later on. We would definitely be more than willing to take another look at it. But I think right now consensus of council is, it's functioning as it can be. And I think it's in good hands right now.
Okay.
And I appreciate the comment too. I think when the activities committee was first created, there was not a corresponding position in the town
Right.
hall. So that was, I don't know if it was.
And then COVID hit.
And then COVID hit, and we were often short at least two positions on
Right.
that committee on a regular basis, just for lack of people coming forth. But, and that's again, putting this out there, maybe getting more interest. Somebody might say, hey, how can I be a part of this?
Okay.
That'd be great.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments on Recreation Committee items? Seeing none, the town manager report, it's in your packet. John, do you have anything to add?
Just a few highlights. First, Jenny Fry will be our police social worker. She started this week. She's met with staff. You'll be seeing her out in public and working with the police on and code enforcement on a variety of projects. Also hired a full-time code enforcement officer who will be starting at the beginning of January. Once again, thank you to everybody for Winterfest planning and preparation. And one of Abby's highlights on the last slide that we will start talking about next year is discussion of the 175th year celebration for the town in 2026. So we'll start to work towards what kind of planning and programming we want to see for that.
It's a heck of a big word. I want to hear you say.
It's the demi-semi-septennial.
that really
You
what
say
it's
it 3 times fast, you get to be on the committee. If not, you don't have to be on the committee, but that's all I have. Any questions about anything in the town? Be happy to answer them.
No questions. Continuing on, the engineer's report was in your packet. If you have any questions, our engineer representative is here this evening.
I have one comment. You don't have to get up. It's 18, not 19 houses.
Oh, off of the ridge, okay.
On your
I'll let you know. Thanks, Jennifer.
Any other questions? Moving on, the town attorney's report.
I have no public report, but my report was in the packet.
Okay. There is no old business, which will bring us into new business. The bulk of the new business beginning here will be appointments for boards and committees. These were reviewed with separate, interviews were held. Let me start the process. Advertisements were posted for interested individuals. Interviews were held with liaisons and alternate liaisons, and then recommendations will be made today and voted upon by all council. It's typically done that the liaison makes that motion. If you see that and you'd like to do that, if not, by all means, anyone can step in. Let's go ahead and get started.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Justin Bennett from the Personnel Board.
There's been a motion for a resignation to start us off here. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Casey. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion's approved. We thank you, Mr. Ameno, for your time served on our board.
I'll make a motion to appoint Brian Schneider to the Personnel Board for a term expiring December 31st, 2027. Sorry, Joe.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. For those who don't know, we're off of our liaisons. There's a battle for who gets the motions here. There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Continuing on to C.
I'll make a motion to appoint Betty Bender to the Financial Development and Promotional Committee for the term expiring December 31st, 2029.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next, MFPAA.
I will make that motion because I'm the only one here that knows how to pronounce his name. I'm going to make a motion to appoint Rob Pizzica to the McCandless Franklin Park Ambulance Authority for a term ending December 31st, 2025.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Wall. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Like to make the next motion to appoint Brian Zidell to the McCandless Franklin Park Ambulance Authority for a term ending December 31st, 2029.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Wall. Any further discussion? Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Casey. Is this the gentleman who resides in Pine?
Yes.
So I do just want to make that note. This is the first time we have opened up this board to residents outside of our municipality. So this was a step to help include those other communities that we serve. So I appreciate that. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any other further discussion? If no, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to make the next motion to appoint Thomas Mursky to the McCandless Township Sanitary Authority for a term ending December 31st, 2029.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 And I will abstain from this vote. The motion carries.
I'll make a motion to appoint Andrew Shingle to McCandless Industrial Development Authority for a term expiring December 31st, 2029.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Wall. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Nick, do you have this in front of you? Go for it.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Irene Caliendo to the Northland Public Library Authority for a term expiring December 31st, 2029.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 A motion to appoint Mr. James Vycheck to the Code of Appeals Board for a term expiring December 31, 2027.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to appoint Ann Clark to the Planning Commission for a term expiring December 31st, 2028.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to appoint Michael McGraw to the Zoning Hearing Board for a term expiring December 31, 2027.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to appoint Arthur Nussbaum to the Zoning Hearing Board for a term expiring December 31, 2027.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. I know that was a whirlwind to get through all those. Next item up here is the reappropriating certain monies. We had the public hearing about this last week. We are just formalizing it. Remember, this is just a adjustment at the end of the year that has to be voted on. So is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Casey,
A motion to adopt ordinance number 1551 of the town of McCandless, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, amending ordinance number 1544, reappropriating certain monies for fiscal year 2024.
there's a
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please indicate, or for all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I make a motion to adopt tentatively identified resolution 22 of 2024, establishing a rate of participant contributions of the town of McCandless Police Pension Plan at 5% for the period January 1, 2025 through and including December 31st, 2025.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. This is just a housekeeping item. We do this every year on the pension plan. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next one up is competitive, more housekeeping items, competitive bidding. It's reset every year. We need a motion for this.
I'll make a motion to adopt tentatively identified resolution number 23 of 2024, establishing the amount when competitive bidding shall not be required for contracts for labor, materials, supplies, or services.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a second. Any further discussion? Please indicate, or all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next one is more housekeeping items, the dates. John and I did go through this, confirmed for holidays, so everything should be accurate. Can we have a motion to approve the meeting dates?
I make a motion to adopt tentatively identified resolution number 24 of 2024, setting dates of various meetings of town council and other town agencies for the year 2025.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is an easement agreement, and this is for future right-of-way access for trail.
I'd like to make a motion to approve an easement agreement providing access to the town on property located at Allegheny County Lot and Block number 1070-L-21 in a form acceptable to the town attorney and town manager.
There's
Second.
a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're gonna do the second one first, and then we'll do Mr. Peggers here. So these two next up, one gentleman's here this evening and one is not. So we're gonna do the first one. The gentleman's not here, and we'll finish with the gentleman who is here. Both of these gentlemen were longtime Public Works employees, did a lot of great work for the town. So the first one will be a motion for Andy. So number S, can somebody make that motion?
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Hart.
Motion to approve testimony resolution number 26 of 2024 for appreciation and recognition by the town of McCandless for Mr. Andy Furnivas on his retirement.
So there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Wall. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The next up is for Mr. Jay Pegger, who is with us this evening here. Similar thing. If somebody can make that motion, Mr. Hart.
Motion to approve testimony resolution number 24 or 25 of 2024 for appreciation and recognition by the town of McCandless of Mr. Jay Pegger upon his retirement.
Second.
Second, Mr. Casey. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I just want to take the time to say.
Mr. Pegger, how long did you work for the township? 51 years.
appreciation recognition by the town of McCandless, Mr. J. Pegger upon his retirement. Whereas upon this occasion retirement of Public Works, Foreman J. Pegger from the town of McCandless effective December 13th, 2024, this resolution is presented as a testimonial of his loyal and dedicated service to the town. And whereas Mr. Pegger has served the town for over 51 years, beginning on September 24th, 1973. And whereas Mr. Pegger has professionally and courteously performed his duties as a laborer, operator, paving inspector, and construction foreman. And whereas Mr. Pegger has been a loyal and dedicated employee, consistently going above and beyond the call of duty, offering to help and train his fellow staff members, and providing his unique set of skills and knowledge, and applying them to paving and infrastructure work throughout the town. Now therefore be resolved by Town Council of the Town of McCandless that the council does hereby honor Mr. J. Pegger for his years of service in the town of McCandless and for the diligent, courteous, and professional manner in which he performed his duties. The above is hereby resolved by Town Council of the Town of McCandless on the 16th day of December, 2024.
Appreciate this, and I wanted to say it's been a pleasure for me to live here. My family, all the way back through my mom up on Minot Road, has been here since they were here when it was made as a homestead. And we still have the property there. I'm one of 4 people that still are living on the homestead in that capacity. And I have worked here because I love the town and I love the way everything's taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With that, is there any public non-agenda comments? Please come forward, state your name and address. No, okay, then at this time, motion to adjourn. There's a
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful holiday season.